Welcome, everybody. My name is Jana Weiss. I'm the Student Life Coordinator for Global Online. Today, we're talking about AI. We're going to talk about it as a research assistant when you're brainstorming, exploring, and organizing your ideas for any topic. Well, we have a wonderful librarian here with us, Alexandra Omastika, and she is going to lead you through all of this wonderful knowledge. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you so much, Anna. Hold on here. I don't want my computer to freeze. Okay. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. I am Alex, and I'm glad that you're here today. We're going to be discussing this topic of, how to use AI to think a little bit more, maybe organize some ideas and brainstorm with it. So this session is not so much about the mechanics of prompting on a basic introduction. We go a little bit more into thinking about how we're thinking, like a little metacognition, right? Practice about what is it that we're doing with artificial intelligence or large language models where we're thinking about conceiving a project, okay? So I have a presentation that I just shared on the chat, which is the same one that I'm going to share with you on the screen. And then after that, we are going to be looking at some tools and some things that I want you to be aware, okay? So let me also, just in case, I just shared the presentation, and I'm going to share some additional links that I also want you to have. These are related to the past sessions that we've had, like the quick introduction to AI and some resources just in case you want to, go look at more support that is related to this topic. Okay. So one thing that I always tell everybody, right, when you are dwelling into this experience of working with artificial intelligence or large language models, is that I highly recommend that you create a separate email account, okay, to work with these new platforms, and especially one that is not attached to your phone. I always want you to work on keeping yourself safe and having some practices that do not compromise your personal information across different platforms. So that's really important. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So as we begin today's conversation, remember, we are going to be working a little bit more on the theoretical practical part of AI, and then we're going to move into some live examples. All right. So as you begin this journey, working with AI, there's some things that I want you to keep in mind. Take an ethical approach to using AI, which in I could summarize that as saying, please don't use it for cheating with your papers, right? Taking content that does not belong to you and giving it credit like if it was something that's original, okay? In the process, when you are brainstorming with AI or using it for any projects, I always want you to remember that you're using a technology. You are not interacting at any point with a person. Okay, so that's really important because AI will make mistakes. And I'm going to show you an example of how a mistake can look like in a way that is really interesting. So this morning I was looking for a topic that has to do with economics and universal basic income, right? And the first place that I went was to Bing. And I want you to know, and you wanted to look at that little note at the top of the screen. That was an AI generated output. Okay. And if and my list is for economics, right? My question is related to that. But then it immediately is quoting unreliable sources. I don't even know what that's about. So be very aware that when you start interacting with AI, either inside a platform or outside of the platform, right, through a browser or perhaps through your phone, you may get some answers that are not altogether correct. I know that Jeff Bezos and Tim Cook are not economists. They are entrepreneurs. Okay. So that's a big no. In contrast, this is a result list from AI generated from Gemini, and I know Milton Friedman, it's an economist, and I know that the rest are economists too. And there's a different link, to other sources, right? But in this case, I always want you to be aware of what content is coming from artificial intelligence or large language models, and that what content are you getting from reviews. So in this case, we are not interacting with a human, okay? We are just interacting with a system that is giving you some results based on some predictions. Now, in contrast, if you ever need to contact, let's say you want to get in touch with a human, like for example, a librarian right now, you can always try ask a librarian from the library, and you can verify if you need to brainstorm, if you want to talk to somebody about a topic, like I don't know what I want to do, or I need more guidance narrowing a topic. You can email us, you can call us, you can text us, and you will have somebody, a human on the other side, right, working with you in getting you to the place where you're satisfied with the elements that you have for the assignment, right? So that concept of you thinking, where can I interact with a human, be your classmates, be your tutors, your counselors, and most importantly, your professors. Because your professors are the one that sometimes delimit, not sometimes, all the time, they delimit in what context and to what scope can you use artificial intelligence, at least for assignments. But if you're brainstorming independently, there are a lot of ways that you can do that. And I also bring up the point of planet consciousness, because some of our students are very concerned about how these technologies use uh power, right, from our grids. So remember that this is just not something that's happening in a vacuum, and for every query that we are doing, there's another side that we might not see how much it costs, right? But there's that element that we need to keep in mind. So when we talk about you and the projects that you select to work on, there's something very important that I want you to remember. Each and every one of you have your own funds of knowledge, okay? So you bring to the conversation with AI, with your professors, um, a certain backgrounds that is related to the way you where you grew up, your experiences in school, the work that you do, your interactions in social media and your friends. So that is very important, because that framework, those general ideas that you bring, also enrich the way that you approach different topics. So don't think yourself as maybe somebody that doesn't know anything, but maybe as somebody that has a certain level of information and knowledge about a topic, right? And as you are interacting with systems and different types of sources, you are going to have something happening in your brain where you're going to be integrating things into your mind, right? To then generate new knowledge. In comparison, AI does not do that. So when you're using AI or large language models for these operations, you are the guy that can tell the system what are the things that you're looking for, what are some constraints or limitations that you have, and where is it that you're going to take this conversation forward. So if at some point you're interested in an approach to learn how to learn and like how to teach yourself, I highly recommend you check the work of Dr. Jancy Maguire, because she uses Bloom's taxonomy to think about thinking and how is it that you can self-organize in the process. Okay. So we have a copy of the electronic book, and we also have copies of the print book in the system. And in the presentation that I shared the presentation. If you click on the link, it will take you to the results. So when we're talking about this whole, what is it that we're doing with teaching ourselves how to learn, and considering Bloom's taxonomy, and at some point you may read about it or hear about it in other places. When you are in performing different, let's say, academic tasks, they can be distributed in different ways. So at the lower level of thinking activities, we got like things like defining, recalling, and maybe selecting or memorizing. And then as you move into more complex operations in terms of the way that you're thinking, you may go through comprehension, application, and analysis, all the way down to synthesis and evaluation, right? So if you notice those verbs on the screen, right? Those are words that you can use to direct the system in the way that you want an output to come in, let's say, a brainstorming process, right? So keep this in mind, and these are good words also when you're trying to describe actions that you want a system to take. When it comes to brainstorming, what I invite you to do is like when you have a topic, it's like just look at it with fresh eyes. Sometimes people talk about the novice mind, right? Like you don't know nothing, anything, and you're going to just explore. So, I want you to make no assumptions about a topic, and also think in a way that it's a little bit more free, because sometimes when we start working on brainstorming, we think, oh, I have this specific idea and this is what I'm going to do, and in that way you kind of like eliminate the brainstorming process where you're supposed to just expand and see what you find in that process of exploration. um you can use AI to generate more ideas. So what we have now on the screen are 5 different ways, examples of prompting in AI in different platforms so that you perform things that are at the level of knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, or synthesis and evaluation. Okay. So for example, if I was to pick a topic, I'm going to pick number 1 right here. The AI body list. Give me just 1 second. And we're gonna go test that. How is it that, how would that look if I was trying that in a platform like ChatGPT, right? And one thing that I'm gonna say about ChatGPT is that if you are using this platform, I am on the free version, right? You can click on this plus sign and you have additional tasks that you can perform. So one thing that I'm gonna emphasize is that you explore the study and learn, the thinking, the canvas, and the quizzes, right? So that way, you can access a version of it that is a little bit different. Not the straight, I'm going to create a new chat and just ask a question. When I do something like this, you're prompting for a guided process that is a little bit different, okay? So I'm going to the study and learn, and I'm going to drop this over here. And the topic that I'm going to select to insert right here is universal basic income. And as you notice, the prompt that I'm using is friendly because I create a friendly environment with my AI, with the large language model. And now I'm waiting for results. So now notice that the AI is giving you back an answer right here when it's indicating um what type of level are you at. And now there's something different that happened on the side right here. You have a new topic, and then it has some ideas that you could explore, right? But it's not giving you answers, it's not giving you paragraphs, and it's not giving you any type of essay. Now, you could do the same thing in a different AI, right? You could do, and we're going to try the same approach in Claude. And these are all free versions. And we are going to do the same here in Gemini. And then you're going to look at different results. Now, notice that in ChatGPT, you didn't get any additional links. It's just putting words together, right? It doesn't know anything, it's predicting. Now, in Claude, you are getting a list and a warning that the model in this conversation is no longer available, and it wants me to switch the model. We're going to do that. There we go. We switch the model to a different one. And in Gemini, hold on. These are the results we got. So if you are just exploring something, this is really interesting. And this one in particular, I would say of the three, it's a little bit confusing because here we start to talk about an Etsy shop and the side hustle catalyst. And one thing that I will say about all of these is that none of them have sources. Now, in a traditional way, you may go to the library and you can use our catalog, right, to look for information about a topic. And what we are seeing on the screen now are different sources that I know have been reviewed and selected for inclusion in the collection. So obviously, of all of the things that we've seen, these are sources that have been verified versus what you get here are general ideas that are coming from information that is not explicitly verified. So you have to be very careful about when you get your sources from. So if it's for idea generation, it could be good to use AI to brainstorm in different ways, but always know that at some point you're going to have to select a source that is actually authentic. Okay. So not only does the library have that opportunity for you of searching in our collection, but we also have guides into different topics. And if you ever want to chat for with a librarian to select something specific, or look in more depth into a source, that is something that you're welcome to do. So remember that large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, another one that is very popular is Perplexity. They are predicting. They are not thinking that like you think. And that is significant for you to remember. Okay. So now we talked a little bit about brainstorming, and then let's talk a little bit also about exploration. When you are exploring a topic, one of the best things that you can do at the beginning is relax. Instead of going all in and, oh, this is what I'm going to do, just give yourself time and space so that you can really determine what you want to do. You can pivot and play around with ideas. This is something that we don't talk too much about, but when you are in that process, right, of evaluating different strains, this is a good way of saying, well, maybe I would like to explore this topic. If the AI is telling me about supporters that believe in reduction of poverty or financial stress, is there another way in which I can, approach that topic, right? And then you see right here that it's telling you about a little bit of an opposition. So in a way, these also could become keywords in further searches that you're going to do. Another thing that I want to highlight is, like, in the example of this topic, you can see the use of words like welfare or food stamps. So these are topics that are related to universal basic income, and then perhaps you may want to look for alternative words that you can use. So I get ideas from here. So then I go verify in other sources. So exploring a topic and determine what you want to do with it in the future is really important. But this idea of, I'm gonna play with my topic, and then if I don't think that I'm going in the right direction, I'm gonna pop it, and then you can switch around and select maybe a variation of your topic. That's fine. So one thing that I highly always encourage you to do is to talk to instructors, to your class professor, so that they can guide you in the process if you want to do a change, because we want to be in alignment with what's required for our classes. So in the presentation, there are other prompts for you to like explore. In this one, for example, we're talking about turn a concept into a game and how all the rules of that game would work. In the final one, this one is for pivot and analysis. So all of these are examples of prompts that you could build to placing AI to generate additional ideas. Okay. Um, and you being the human in the loop is pretty much the most important part about the process, because you are the one that sets the constraints in the system and you guide the AI into what to do, right? So I'm going to stop here for 1 second and see if there's any questions about that. It's really, really important that you remain as the human in the loop. You are the person responsible for whatever content you are getting out of the AI, right? Or the large language models. So, number one, by now we know that these systems don't always give us um, answers that are correct because they are just predicting, okay? And unless you prompt and you give an instruction to the system, that some systems may not give you where they got those words put together for their prediction. Okay. So you need to be very mindful about what is it that I'm doing with these systems and to what type of activity am I guiding them. Some of these systems are very reactive to the vocabulary that you place in them, to the type of instructions, and of course, they are rules of correct usage. So in some cases, if you ask for something that might be considered illegal, the system will tell you, well, this query is violating our terms of services, and we won't answer it. Um, so sometimes then, if something like that happens, you may query the system and try to get out that information about what is it that we can't answer that, right? um so being very mindful of what you're seeking and doing it in a way that is ethical is important. um because one of the greatest fears that we're facing is that when you are using the systems, that you unload your cognitive activities, right, to the large language models or the AI models, so that then you don't go through that process in which you learn to acquire knowledge, analyze, evaluate, synthesize, and generate knowledge. Because sometimes people think that if you are reading a book, right, that what is in this book is the knowledge. And then some people will tell you, man, perhaps what is in this book is the information, and it becomes knowledge in your mind when you apply it. So there's different ways of thinking about knowledge is and where information is coming from. Let me see. Carlos has a comment. That's correct, Carlos. Plenty of spaces where AI is not giving you the correct citation. And I do one of the tools that I'm going to share today. It's a little bit different, and I think you might like it. Okay, so as you are in this process of exploring, and playing around, one thing that you need to do is get organized. Okay, you have to get organized with your sources, unless not sources, but your processes. And everybody has a different way of working, okay? But in your own system, right, as you are creating, I want you to think about four different things that might aid you in creating the desired results that you want. So, in a certain way, you can consider what is it that you're going to um collect from these systems, right? And if you consider yourself, it's also your thoughts. So what thoughts are you having about your topics, right? When you are looking at information, then how is it that you're going to extract to cite? And remember, if you are using AI systems that are allowed by faculty, you have to cite them. And in the other materials that I attach, I have additional resources for you to um, learn how to cite in APA and MLA format. One thing that I cannot stress enough is that you need to verify your sources, right? AI is not a valid source of information unless I will say that you get a link to a source from the online world. If you are just using AI as the source, it's not the best. And then of course you need to compose an answer to the query that you might have. So, in terms of, a different way of approaching the use of AI to get organized or to understand text, there is a tool that I'm going to share with you, and it's called Notebook LM. It is pretty powerful, and it's something that I think Notebook LM was an independent platform, and then Google bought it and put it together under the suite. So I'm using the free version of it so that we have a similar experience. And I see uh, Mohammed is typing. And as we wait, it's okay, Mohammed. If you cannot see it, I'll share it with you again. I'll make sure that you guys receive the PowerPoint. Thank you. So, um, in this case, there is a tool. Of course, there is a tool called Notebook LM, okay? And what you're seeing on the screen right now is the way the tool would look to a person that has a free account, okay? So we can all use this service. If you have a free account, there's a limit to what you can do in it, of course, and you're gonna see this a lot in different services where they upgrade you and they give you more. But I always recommend that you try something for free first and then determine if it's something that you may use for other things. So when you're working with Notebook LM, what you have is an area where you can create your own notebooks, okay? And I'm going to make one similar to the one that I made in the fall for this experience. This one, we go here, we create a notebook, and you can upload files, right? So I'm gonna upload some files that I selected. Here we go. May have to go to my desktop. Give me 1 second. Give me a moment because my file is not there. When you upload the files, you can then add them to the notebook. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I have my files right here. These two files that I have on the screen are articles, okay? And I got those from the databases. So I'm going to upload them to the service. One is Ciabala and the other one I'm gonna do one Ciabala. And what's gonna happen is that on the left side of the screen, you're going to see your files being uploaded. Okay. And then here, you're gonna have an interactive chat area where you can interact with the system to prompt around that file. On the right side, you're going to have different things that you can produce, like reports, flashcards for studying. You can make a quiz out of a file, and you can also make my pans or even create video overviews. Okay, so it is very powerful in terms of what you can do with it. And it is something that I am recommended that you explore as you are working with the system. Okay, so just in case that one doesn't upload, I'm going to add another one here. This one has to do with the impact of artificial intelligence in higher education. I'm going to click here and add another source. Give me a second. There we go. So I have another file uploading there. And this one is taking a little bit of time. So I'm going to go to the notebook that I made in October that had my files. So I had two articles and a paper that I wrote. On the middle right here, what you're seeing is an analysis of the three sources. That's why you see the check marks. So then You can query the system to provide, in this case, examples of ideas that you can gain from what's in the documents. So now what you're seeing here are the results based on the examples on the left. And if you click on the numbers, it takes you directly to where is that came from the source, which is very unique. So it's not just, let's say, creating content out of thin air, but it is generating content out of the sources that you provided. Okay. Now, if you notice on the right side of the screen, I already created different types of materials, like a study guide, just in case I wanted to create something for me to go over different uh, content parts of what I'm doing, what I'm selecting. In addition, in the studio area on the right side, I have my flashcards for studying with different quotes from the documents. And one that could be very important for you is in the process of creating new and generating new ideas is the one with the tree. So one thing that I want to emphasize about this particular tool is that if you notice, the tool is taking content from the sources that you provided. It's not taking content from random places online or on content that you don't know where it came from, right? So in that way, you are creating a small knowledge base of information that then you can use for additional brainstorming or exploring. Um, you have to play around with these technologies to determine ways in which they can be beneficial to your own thought process, right? I don't like highlighting only one because there are other things that you could do with other systems. And I'm going to check the chat for a second. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, I see Raquel. Thank you, Raquel. It's a good notebook LM. It's a good resource, and it's different, right? In that it and it has a feature that you can use to look on the web, okay? But in this case, it's more of a source for you to organize ideas, right? And then explore and maybe you could even ask questions like, and when I say ask questions, it's prompting. So you are may prompt for something like, what are some aspects of this piece of literature that are not explored too often? An idea like that, where you're going to thinking, it's something different. Yeah, it's a little bit different than Quizlets. Yeah, so I'm glad that you guys are appreciating something on the screen. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you a different way of using ChatGPT that may help you, oh my goodness, organize projects in a different way. Okay. So, in this particular case, when we are using ChatGPT, you sometimes get to a point where people just go to ChatGPT and they start asking a question right there. So questions straight ahead, right? But in this system on the left side, you have a project mode, okay? And if you are working in project mode, and let's say I'm going to do a project that's going to be maybe like a writing project or a homework project, I can select homework and then I can say, I'm going to say food because it's going to be a food project. Okay. So I can create a project. And what happens is that if you notice on the left side now, you have a project, but apart you have your chats. So this project that you created right here is independent from the chats that you have below. Okay. Now, here you can add files. You have the option of using the study and learn mode, which is highly recommended. And then you have additional things like, for example, Canvas, a quizzes integration that you can clear, and there's additional apps that you can use. One thing that I will say is that when you're using the system saves in its memory the queries that you are creating. But in this case, anything that you create, let's say under the food project, is going to be independent from your other projects. So in that way, the project can have a different feel. So does anybody know a name of a chef that you can share with me on the chat? Let me see. I need a chef. Raquel is gonna give us a chef. She's got us. Gordon Ramsay. Okay. Emerald. Okay. Okay. So I will be careful with Gordon Ramsay because sometimes he's a little bit too fiery. But we'll try. So check this out. So I am going to kind of like put a constraint in my Bobby Flay. Okay, Raquel. Whew, thank you. We're gonna go with Bobby Flay. Thank you, Raquel. So I'm going to design a project using like the idea of Bobby Flay. Okay. So I'm going to put some constraints in my system. Now I want you guys to give me like a recipe that you want Chef Bobby Flay to cook. Let me see what you say. I need a recipe from you. Shrimp and grits. Okay, Raquel, she's on point. So now notice what I query Bobby Flay to do. Okay, we're gonna leave it at an outline. And we're gonna see what's happening. We what's happening? We gotta get Raquel some shrimps and grits. Okay. So now it knows my name, and it says it's a rich history. And the first thing it's asking is this for college? And then it's telling me, oh, we can start to think about food like food historians. And then notice that it's prompting me what region of the United States. And then I'm going to say this is for college. And I am thinking about South. Maybe New Orleans. So now it's prompting me for more questions, right? Why do you think a coastal area? It's talking about South Carolina and Georgia, particularly the low country, right? Now I can say I don't know anything about the low country, right? I never heard this before. So now I'm curious. And maybe I want to go find out what is this low country? And I'm also thinking, is there a shrimp industry there? Right? So if you notice, um, this mode of study is not giving you the answers. It's prompting you to think and reflect by predicting something different. So it's a very good way of pivoting and like thinking about your topic in a different way, right? And then I'm just curious. So I don't know if Florida, they have shrimp and southern food traditions. But for a college presentation, we might ask, where did the dish first documented as a cultural staple? Not where just shrimp exists. So it's taking me, don't think about just, where is stream present, but how, what is it about it? So now it's bringing three different things, right? Coastal fishing communities and West Africans working in rice plantations and local martial laborers. And then it's also introducing other things that I never heard about. I never heard about the Gula Gishi culture. So you bet that after today, I'm gonna go find out what this is about. Okay. Um. Um. When you when we were in Notebook LM, Notebook was working with the content and extracting things fairly quickly. Here in the project mode, under the study mode, we are actually exploring and like a topic by the predictions that the system is making. And if I go into regular ChatGPT, I can prompt it to get like 500 words on a specific topic and then highlight some sources. The only thing that I want to stress about using large language models and artificial intelligence for gathering sources is that these products, their databases, right? They have their own containers of information. They are not the equivalent of the databases that the library has. That HCC libraries has, that UH libraries has, they're separate, okay? So when you're using these models, sometimes the information that you're gathering is circumscribed to a very, very specific, narrow place in time, depending on what they capture. Okay. So that is something that you need to be aware of, because as you are developing your professional expertise, I want you to consider, right, in your line of academic work and in your future profession, how is artificial intelligence being integrated? Okay. So Jana and I were talking earlier. She was talking about the pit, the show with what is it?
Noah Wiley.
Noah Wiley, right? She was talking about the pit, and you know, an episode, and she told me about this episode in which there is a doctor telling somebody else that you have to check the medical records, right? Because sometimes people don't check. And as we were talking about this, I went in to look for information about using AI for medical assistance, right? And one thing that I found was that there is now a concern, right, in us uploading all of this to AI and not taking care of it. So that's not something that we want you to do. We want you to explore. We want you to play with the technology. We want you to know where it's present, but we want you to be accountable. Because at the end of the day, when we are working on our projects, either for school, for work, right, we are responsible for the content we deliver. And as HCC, guides you into the process of integrating different technologies and content into your class, you have to remember to ask your professor, can I use this technology for my project? If they say no, well, it's no. I have other professors that are integrating technologies like this into their assignments. So if they do that, then you're welcome to, include it. So be very careful and mindful about that. And in the content or in the context of offloading your cognitive activities to the AI, you also have to be extremely careful, because if you just let the AI do everything for you, then what are you learning? And what is your expertise? So then we never want you to be somebody that is not accountable as a professional for the deliveries that you do in the context of the workplace. And then in your personal life, it's the same. We don't want you to be using some, misinformation from AI or social media to make uninformed choices. Okay? So be very mindful about that, because as you saw how many apps I was using, right? And the more that you use, the more remote that we are becoming, maybe from something a little bit more traditional, like a book, that I know that has an author that studied the topic that I can explore, right? And remember, we have electronic books and we have electronic resources that you can consult as you are brainstorming. Because one thing that sometimes I see that we don't practice enough is finding a, let's say, master text that can help you in the general understanding of a topic before you deep dive. Okay. So do I have any questions? You can post them on the chat. Now, remember, we also have additional workshops that Jana has planned. And thank you, Jana, for planning that. We have additional workshops that Jana has for her programs. I think we have a couple of more that are related to uh, artificial intelligence, and we have one coming up that has to do with web pages, and we have another one that's going to happen related to image creation, which has been a hot topic. It's been requested by some students. So we're going to be working with how to generate image in artificial intelligence platforms without breaking copyright. Okay? Because that's really important. There are a lot of debates around it. We want to be compliant with the law. Okay. And remember, and in another webinar, I mentioned this. You have sovereignty over your brain. Okay. It's like you are controlling the process. Don't become kind of like, we're talking matrix here. Don't become a slave to that system. You have to retain your own identity in the way that you write, in the way that you communicate with the system, just as if you were, communicating with somebody else. And one last thing that I want to mention, all of these systems sometimes have a little flaw that is not good. Not only do they hallucinate and sometimes they give you information that is not, real, but they have a tendency to please. Meaning that depending on how you're interacting with the systems, they may not even tell you when the information that they are delivering is wrong, which they won't. So I've had some queries in some points in which I have said that the output is incorrect. And then I told the system recalculate this and that. That happens in, for example, I run some budgets there. So then when I told the system this calculation that you made, is not correct. And then the system says, "Oh, I see that where you say that this is not correct. Let me fix this." After I told the system to do a different thing, a different type of evaluation. Okay. So I foresee that for the next coming years, we're still going to have working developments. And thankfully, together with one another, with your professors, with your librarians, and with tutors, you will have guidance to how to integrate these technologies in a better way. Okay. So if you have any questions, reach out. I will be happy to help. I'm going to place my email. If you notice, as I was going through all these different platforms, sometimes I have one prompt that I can, paste in all of them. Or even as you're interacting, your ideas may go into a different way. There is not a, let's say, well, no, I'm going to say in a different way. There could be, let's say, an optimal way of using these platforms. Okay. But you remember when I said that when I was talking about the fonts of knowledge and what you bring to the table? So a lot of these platforms are going to respond to you. So let's say Raquel and Carlos, they have a similar query and they can start with the same approach. But as they going through the process, they could be, it could grow into something different. Okay. So each of you need to become, let's say, AI literate in knowing where are these platforms present. Are they on my phone? Are they happening on my searches? What can I do with them to learn independently, not become dependent on them to learn? Okay. So it's like adding a tool. It's like an advanced pen. Okay. It's not the substitution for a pen. Keep that in mind. on the chat. And if we have no other questions, Jana, we can conclude at this time.
Yes, thank you all for coming. I will get this up on our YouTube page so you can rewatch it if you like, and we will get anything out that needs for extra credit. Thank you all for coming and spending time with us today. We look forward to seeing you at our upcoming events. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good day.